What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today we're gonna go over a Blue Wave premium deck profile. So this is shout out to Anthony Tolbert, a good amigo of mine. And so I'm gonna cover some of the card choices and what makes this deck unique. So let's get right into it. Check out Next Level Gaming's playmats. As we got some recent ones, we got some more overdress playmats, but also the Garrett Chronicle one is really cool too. I know Mr. Time Leap or Vanguard Insider really loves this playmat too, so I definitely recommend it. It's really cool artwork. Even I like it, and I don't play the clan. Check out their playmats too, and you can use the affiliated link down below for a 10% discount on your next purchase. So let's discuss the winning image for this deck. So one of the things that Anthony wanted to make this deck do much better than the typical builds is really that grade 3 turn that Tetra-drive can have that aggression. And one of the factors, if you already haven't noticed yet, is really this order that we have: Gather Upon Me, Ye Wandering Souls. Well, what a mouthful, right? But what it does is that you can discard another order from your hand and then choose one of your vanguards, and then it gets an additional drive check until the end of turn. So you can start seeing that if you put it on Tetra-drive, especially if you're going first and your opponent's still grade 2, for example, this will swing for the first attack 3 drive checks. Then when you do the 4th battle skill to restand it and lose a drive check, it'll still have twin drive at least. And then if you get to the 7th battle, you can restand once more, and again, you still have twin drive. So you'll see a total of 7 drive checks. So that makes it a lot more threatening. And so one of the biggest things that also hurts this turn is because Tetra-drive doesn't really get bigger. Like by itself, it doesn't need power. So your Vanguard's kind of swinging kind of weak in that sense too. So he does play other cards to help with that. A good card is over here, Felagatos, and so when your Vanguard attacks, this unit and the Vanguard gets plus 5k until the end of the turn. So for each Vanguard attack, it gets 5k, 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 so you can get a total up to 15k at the last attack total. So making your Vanguard at least 12 plus 15, 27 on the last battle, or 22 in the second, and then of course like 17 on the first if you just had this card, not including triggers. But it's another way where this card also becomes a beater, and you can keep saving this card as for the last attacks that you have, so that way you have a big beater regard with your Vanguard also getting bigger too. Another card that he plays is the Hapalos. This is a promo, and really what it does is when your Vanguard attacks, you can retire this card from your regard circle and then choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets plus 10k until the end of turn. And then of course at the end of the battle, if the attack hit, you can draw cards. So it kind of breaks even in the advantage, but really you want the power in that sense. So ultimately your Tetra becomes 12 to 22k, and then if you have something like Felagatos, for example, that gets even bigger at that point to 27, 32, 37, and so on. And again, if you got triggers, even better so. So that way you can just use your counterblast where it really counts in that sense. The counterblast can be used for Propulsion Dragon, for example. This is at the end of the battle that this unit attacked a grade 2 or greater Vanguard. You can counterblast one, choose one of your back row regards and swap positions with it, and then stand this unit. So this becomes a swapper slash a restanding booster for that next attack, so that way you can optimize your battle formation too and get in the number of attacks that you need to get to the 4th battle, to get to the 7th battle, to be able to maximize on that grade 3 turn. Also, another card that kind of helps if you don't open with the other order, he's playing in Search for an Ideal Far Away. And so what this card is you can choose one of your units. It could be a Vanguard or it can be a rear guard, and then basically it gets the red text skill where when it sees another unit attack, this unit gets plus 5k until the end of the turn. It's an auto skill, so it keeps triggering every single time. So imagine your Vanguard, if you target your Vanguard, for example, it'll get stronger as each battle goes about that a different unit did. So if your rear guards attack for the 1st and 2nd battle, your Vanguard by the 3rd battle will be plus 10k. And then your 4th will be another rigor, which gives it another plus 5. And then if you immediately attack with the Vanguard after that, it'll be plus 15 total in that sense too. So it's just another way to help with that. You can also maximize on a rear guard getting bigger and bigger because we do play a restanders. A restander like Tidal Assault is the original one, so that at the end of the battle, this can restand when it attacks a Vanguard and then lose minus 5k until the end of the turn. But you could save this at these last battles where you're trying to hit that 4th battle, or you're trying to hit that like 7th battle, for example. And so that's why this Tidal Assault, he plays at 4 to have that flexibility. And you could use it as a beefy regard with the other order. And to help with the number of attacks too, you got Terrific Coil. He actually plays a couple of these. These are great for those 1st, 2nd battles, so that way your opponent has to either take it or drop significant guard, depending if this is by itself or in an Excel circle too. So by itself it's a 14k, but on an Excel 2 circle, it'll be 19k. So it starts demanding 10k shield in that point. Going back a little bit, once you start like with your first grade 1 turn, one of the cards that he likes to ride into is the Wheel of Assault, where you essentially, when it's rolled upon onto grade 2, essentially at that point you can Counter Blast, draw a card, and call something to field. This helps you get your pieces set it up, making it a little bit easier to get to that grade 3 turn. You may not need some Counter Blast for your grade 3 turn, because Tetra doesn't need to restand the first time with a Counter Blast, but you will need another Counter Blast to do the second restand in that sense. And if you do, you depend on something like Propulsion Dragon. So it really depends on the pieces that you have, and if you need, you know, 0 to Counter Blast or 2 at that point. And another unit that he likes to ride as the grade 2 is the Cuteria, and so, or Cuteria, how you pronounce it. So when it attacks Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 5k until the end of the turn. And then if this was on Vanguard circle and it's the 3rd battle or more, you can draw a card. So this helps with the early game aggression. So if you do ride this, you can play a little bit of an early game. It just depends on the matchup that you're in, but it's something that he liked to choose. I thought it was interesting. I've tried playing this card, but for his build, I can kind of see why he's going for that. One of the highlights that he likes to do is set up to the point where your opponent's at 2 to 3 damage, if possible, by the time you ride to grade 3, while they're still at grade 2. So that way your turn is a little more killer in that sense too. So you can actually finish the game more solidly. Some of the other cards that he has the Barragios, which is the top 5 grade 3 searcher. He has pretty standard crit pressure. You do notice one thing is that he's playing the Crit Sentinel, so there are no PGs, and really it's just having that pressure to guard with 1 card. So he went with this, and so that could be more the early game. In the late game, that might be hurtful, and his goal is to try to finish that if possible. And if you have the right setup, you may not have to go into stride if you're going second, and you can still do a power pack turn with the extra drive checks and the extra power ups that you get from like the other rear guards. So that's where that mindset is from, because he does play draw triggers, but he's playing the stoicheia ones. So this at least gives you an additional 10k shield. If you don't feel comfortable with that, this is something that you could have to draw PGs if you want, and then have like the other crits that can go into soul, or if you want, you can play the brutal troopers. Notice that he doesn't play the Brutal Troopers to get advantage. I know some Blue Wave players really like the Brutal Troopers. I do too as well. But again, it's just one of those things that it's a combo piece that it goes away, and you still have to have other pieces to work with, so that way you can take advantage of Brutal Trooper to really get advantage. And all these triggers are like plus 10k power, so they're not like the G-era triggers where you're only getting plus 5k. So that helps making your Vanguard much more aggressive in that sense too, because the whole point is you have a restanding Vanguard with multi-attack rear guards, and the Vanguard keeps getting bigger and bigger, and your drive checks are kind of scary in that sense. Wrapping up with the G-Zone, really, it's pretty standard, and one of the things with Blue Wave, the G-Zone is really tight. Like, holy crap. And as you can see, there's a lot of 1-ofs and 2-ofs in this sense too, and you know, you got 1 Alexandros to help finish that game. You have a Jumbo that you can fall back into. One of the weaknesses of this build is that you commit all your pieces to be aggressive, but you may have a small hand to work with, right? And that's one of the things I mentioned about Brutal Trooper not being in this list. So Jumbo is something that you can fall back into and get back some of the advantage back too. So that's what Jumbo really helps in that regard. Usually in most Aqua Force builds, it doesn't do anything different except for gaining advantage, retiring, and restanding some riggers to have some pressure. And we have Valeos. Valeos is super helpful. Again, for those that don't know, it can lock an opponent if you have 2 more face-up cards in the G-Zone at 11k. So that gets around the whole overtrigger sense too. So that way they slow at 11k and not have a 100 million power Vanguard if it gets damage check, for example. So that helps a lot in like sealing the deal. This is actually a substitute for the new stride for Ragas, and I'll put it on the screen too so you guys can actually know what it does. So the new stride can be something where you can generate additional circles, you can have multiple units restand and have that more pressure. You do have the Blue Wave strides, and so one of the big ones is Flood Hazard Turn. This has the most stride checks, and again, you can use that order card even on your stride turn, so your strides are at least quad check in that sense. And then if you got something like Flood Hazard, you're gonna have more drive checks. So you see like the 5 drive checks for the first battle because it gets itself another drive check too, which is kind of crazy. And then you lose 3, you go down to 2, so you'll see 7 drive checks in total for this turn as well, which makes Flood Hazard much more scarier. The other thing is that do keep in mind that it needs a Blue Wave Rigger to hit the 4th battle, so you just need to make sure that that 4th battle is a Blue Wave unit. And which if you don't, you have the Tetra Dragon. This is very generic, so again it's a re-standard. When it uses its skill, it goes to Twin Drive, but then if you have the order card, it goes from initially quad check, right, but you immediately go down back to triple drive, and then your second attack will be triple drive as well, so you'll see 6 drive checks with just the Tetra Boil turn as well. And then the rest of the G zone is pretty standard, like you got 2 Lambros just in case you don't have a CB, you got Gigaphilias, he's playing 3 actually, heavily dependent on the sense. You got the Ionis and you got the Ice Barrier. You can make room for the other G-Guard too that we're getting also. Dynera, for example, so that's super helpful. I'll put it on the screen too so you guys can know what it does. But yeah, I think this is really cool, just having a different unique taste. I like the idea of this order card just adding drive checks and to our restanding Vanguard. And in stoicheia, at least with Aqua Force, the only thing that really comes to mind is Tetra in the first place. And the consistency of it is you need enough orders too. So for example, he's playing 3 here and then 2 here, so he has 5 orders. So it's not like I need to see this card. It's like if I do see this card, I should have another order to be able to like pay the costs and do my thing, and that's the whole game plan too. So some closing thoughts. I think there is some room for change if you like to go to your preference. One of the biggest things is if you want to go more with the draw PGs like I mentioned instead of the crit sentinels, that's one change you can do. You could also change maybe Kateria and some of the units, so that way you have a different avenue of regards that you can use depending on what you want to focus. But again, this deck is a little more helpful in that grade 3 turn where I felt like Blue Wave Tetra-drive had like kind of a lackluster grade 3 turn, or not lackluster, I would say maybe like fragile for a better word. But compared to Dava's Lambros, and you got like Maelstrom, where really the decks are really consistent for those grade 3 turns, so you don't have to worry as much for those grade 3 turns compared to Tetra-drive. I hope that makes sense too. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions or anything or thoughts that you know, what do you like about this spell or the ideas in that sense, or what are some things that you think that would even improve in this deck. We would definitely appreciate hearing that too, and Anthony as well. And if you have any questions, you could go ask too. I'm sure he'll comment there as well. And if you want to level up your gaming, go ahead and click on Next Level Gaming's 10% discount link in the description below to check out the playmats. Really cool playmats, especially with the new ones coming out. We have the Gear Chronicle one, like I mentioned before, really solid. And of course, there's some other ones too, like stoicheia, for example. Don't forget to use 50 Card Shop. Also use the code Jaime if you're going to get his bundles for the next release coming up soon. And then you also, if you use TCG Player, feel free to use the affiliated link to support the channel as well while you get your purchase as well. If you liked the video, leave a like down below. You know, let me know what you think and opinions, thoughts, suggestions. I love to engage with the community, helpful with that regard. Go ahead and share with amigo too that may like this or maybe find this interesting as a different avenue too. And of course, subscribe amigos. Until the next time, don't forget to hit that instant notification for more future content. See ya. Bye.